In episode 148 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, I'm going to talk about breath and breathing and how it applies to your health and fitness. The show notes for this episode can be found at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/148. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Okay, so let's talk about breath and breathing. I sometimes think that we forget how important breath and breathing is because it's something that we just do automatically. You know, there's a part of our brain, the animal part of our brain, that just basically makes it to where we're going to breathe whether we want to or not. And in many cases, say you hold your breath until you're going to die, but your parents know or knew that you would pass out before you actually died. So in fact, you can't hold your breath until you die, unless of course maybe you're underwater. But I'll digress there. But when we just let breath and breathing be this autopilot thing, I think we're missing a huge opportunity to really get the true value out of what breath and breathing is. So I want to talk a little bit about the breathing process and what we're doing the breathing for, so you can kind of understand the importance of it, and then we can really kind of dive into some things that you should consider with regards to your breath and your breathing. When we breathe in, we're obviously bringing in an air mixture that includes some oxygen. And so we bring in that oxygen. We know that the oxygen is predominantly what we're looking for, what we're going to use out of that breath. Well, that oxygen basically is an energy source. It's the fuel for the fire that's going to run through our body and actually give us energy, give us the ability to create energy within our body. So it's important to make sure that you're getting enough oxygen, and I think we all know that. So we don't put ourselves typically in places where we're not going to get enough oxygen. However, there are situations when people do. If you're living in a smoggy city, or you're running down the road and there's a bunch of traffic, cars that are putting out carbon monoxide, or if you happen to smoke, those are all times when you're cutting your body's capacity to pull in the oxygen that it needs. And so that's one thing that you should strongly consider with regards to your overall health, is what you put in your body becomes your body, becomes part of who you are. And that includes what you breathe in. So, making sure that you're getting a good source of clean air when you're working, when you're doing basic things, I think is extremely valuable. Now, when we breathe out, I think most people know that we're expelling carbon dioxide, but we're actually doing more than that. I talked in the ketosis show episode a little bit about the ketonics. And obviously then the ketonics is a way for you to measure the ketone bodies coming out through your breath. So obviously you're expelling something more from your breath there. If you have blood alcohol, obviously then the alcohol meters, the blood meters, the air meters, the blood meters, they can actually measure the alcohol content of your blood through your breathing. So the breathing process out is expelling waste. It's beyond the carbon dioxide. There's other waste elements that are coming out. So making sure that you get good oxygen in and you're able to expel the right amount of the carbon dioxide and other waste products is very, very important. A study came out not too long ago that talked about how when you are losing fat, that, a lot of people have wondered, where am I losing that fat to? And I had always thought that it was probably a combination of the urine and the feces. Well, what we come to find out is, and at least the hypothesis out there right now is, no, when you're burning fat, the byproducts are going to be carbon dioxide and water. So yes, you probably are excreting some of that fat through your urine, but the bulk of it, the most of it, is actually going to come out in carbon dioxide. So again, when you're when you're losing fat, you're very likely at that point in your life, you're actually breathing out the carbon dioxide as the waste product from that fat burning. So I just thought that was a very interesting concept of breathing, is that you are actually losing weight through your breath. Now, when you move, and you felt this, you can get really winded. You're basically breathing very, very heavy as you're moving. And so that's just kind of the concept where your body is trying to balance the bringing in of oxygen and the expulsion of the carbon dioxide. And the reality of the heavy breathing is that you're actually have an abundance of carbon dioxide in your blood, and you're not breathing fast enough or enough volume, actually, to get all of that carbon dioxide out there. So that's why I really want to kind of get into this next phase of what I want to talk about is the volume aspects. Most people don't actually use the full capacity of their lungs. I mean, it's probably impossible to use the full capacity of your lungs, but most people are really only using about a third to 1/4 of their total lung volume when they're breathing. This happens for a lot of different reasons, but the primary reason is that we're now typically in a seated position for much of the day. And when you're in a seated position, particularly if you're typing or you're working with a phone, you now have your chest closed. You have everything in the front closed and bent forward, and that shortens the space for the lungs to expand. So the lungs don't expand the way they need to. The other thing that happens is because we're not maybe as active as we need to be, we've allowed our rib cage flexibility and strength to diminish. And as a result, it doesn't go as big. So most of us now are breathing just at the chest, not at the belly. And we're not filling our lungs completely and then expelling that full amount as a function of our breathing. And that weakens our capacity to bring in more air and to expel more carbon dioxide and waste. So I think it's important for you to take the time to start practicing breathing correctly. Now, a lot of times when you're in a yoga class or any kind of exercise class, they like to start it with take a deep breath. And you'll spend a good bit of those classes focusing on your breath. So if you're already doing a practice like that, we'll keep doing it. And make breathing something that you do a little bit more mindfully. And so I want to kind of transition into this mindful breathing, because I think it's really important for us to at least occasionally stop and think about how sitting and other things we're doing might be damaging our health. One other thing that damages our health, probably more than even just the sitting, is just the chronic stress that we often find ourselves in. Cortisol levels go off the charts. We start retaining body fat. We start losing muscle mass. And it's not a good situation. So breathing is a very effective technique for lowering your overall stress response. So what you want to try to do is make a point of putting away time each day when it makes sense for you, either early in the morning, during the afternoon, or in the evening. Just pick a time that works best for you. What I've found is a really good time for me to do a meditation practice where I really focus on mindful breathing is in the afternoon. Around 2 or 3 o'clock is about the best time for me, because that's when typically during a work day my stress levels start to really kind of weigh on me a little bit, So there's 2 things I'll do. One is I'll go to the gym and I'll work up a sweat. I'll lift something heavy. That obviously helps me cope with the stress. But another thing I like to do is I'll often, right when I get back from the gym, is sit down, for about 10 minutes or so and just go through a 10-minute mindful breathing meditation. So at that point, I'm focused inwardly. I'm focused on my breath. I'm focused on me, and just really kind of let the rest of all that outside world go. And so that's one way you can do it. I use the app Headspace, and I've recommended that on this show before. I really do recommend it. The 10-minute sessions that they have set up for the beginner, it costs nothing, but it's a great tool. And there's other ones like Calm, and there's some others, but I really do enjoy the app, the Headspace app, and recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. The other thing that you get from mindful breathing is kind of just this energy. And I want to walk you through just one exercise real quick. If you're in a place where you can do this, and even if you're driving or whatnot, I want you to take a good deep breath in and hold it for just a second, and then breathe it out. Take it in through your nose and then out through your mouth, just real slow and easy, deep, and then out. Now, I want you to stop for just a second and just think about how that felt. It felt pretty good, didn't it? You by forcing yourself to mindfully breathe and to hold it for just that second and then mindfully breathe it out, you've given your body the time to do the things that the breathing was intended to do for you. And there's tremendous value to that. So what we did there was just a normal breathing exercise that I think if you've done a yoga class or any kind of aerobics class or anything like that, pretty much on any class that I've ever gone to, they typically start with some form of breathing like that. You've done that type of exercise, and I'd encourage you to do that. But I want to introduce you to one that you may not have heard of. This is getting very, very big in the biohacking sphere. People are just loving this because it does change the way you breathe. It changes the depth with which you breathe, and it helps strengthen the diaphragm. And it has a lot of other awareness qualities to it. And it's called box breathing. And in a box breathing exercise, what you're basically going to do is you're going to breathe in for a period of, say, 3 to 4 seconds. So set your time. I would start with the lower end of this at first so you can get used to it. So say 3 seconds. You breathe in for 3 seconds. You hold that for 3 seconds. Then you blow out for 3 seconds. And then you hold the out for 3 seconds before you start to breathe back in. And you could typically do this 4, 5, 6, 7 times, just depending on how strong you feel about it. You're doing all this breathing through your nose, which is a little different. Typically, a lot of breathing exercises, they'll have you breathe out through your mouth. But typically with box breathing, they encourage you to breathe in and out of your nose. So let's go through it really, really quickly here. Just a quick little exercise of breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, out for 3 seconds, and then hold for 3 seconds. And so we're going to do this starting 1, 2, 3. Okay, how'd that feel? So we just did one, but it forced you to really think. And a lot of people say that, kind of one of the bigger growth parts of this is when they're doing that 3 second hold when it's out, that it kind of feels a little scary when you first start doing it. But that's an opportunity for your body to really kind of go through the full range of things that it does when it's breathing. So I encourage you to experiment with your breathing. Pick up some meditation, particularly the types of meditation that do focus on mindful breathing. Try to build the capacity of your lungs to take in more oxygen and expel more waste. That's going to give you a higher level of endurance when you're doing things. You're not going to get winded nearly as soon because your body is going to be able to take in volumes bigger than what it is. And so if you find yourself sitting there at the desk a lot, do take some time away, during the day and just do some deep breathing so you can reopen that cavity, chest cavity, so you can get the diaphragm stronger. It's a muscle too, and you want to make sure you're working that muscle. If you got something valuable from today's podcast, I'd really appreciate your sharing this episode with friends and family. Just send them to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/148. Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we'll discuss the book, Real Food, Fake Food, with the author, Larry Olmsted. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.